Welcome. We're back today. Lori's back. Um, did not expect this. Or did I? Honestly, um, so if you haven't read the title, Lori Vallow has filed a motion to have a retrial. And what was the motive for this? It was based on a few things, but mainly the statements made by one of the jurors. I don't know his number, but Carl. He did a He was one of the 3 jurors that did a interview, the day of the verdict, and, he has since done a interview with Hidden True Crime to clear up some things, but basically he said a few things that Lori feels like could be means for a mistrial. I feel like a lot of people, when they first saw this interview outside of the courthouse, they were a little bit worried. They were worried that Lori was going to demand a retrial, and of course, um, all of their worries did come true because now Lori um, wants to have another trial, which is very confusing to me. It's one of those things, and I go between Lori is this calculated like person, and I don't know. There's a lot of talk about whether or not Lori's intelligent, and while I don't think that she's intelligent in the sense that she can write a book or I don't know, like solve a math equation or, um, take a logics class and pass it. I do think that she's calculated in a way. I think that she's very conniving, and there's a way to be intelligent with that without being like academically intelligent. And that's what I think she is. She's very manipulative. Also I tried a new mic placement. I feel like it's kind of weird, but and I think that, you know, I go between being like, is this some sort of secret motive? Is this some sort of like, you know, um, way to prolong this, to be in the spotlight? But then I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, here's my thing. I think that Lori is very contradictory to herself. She lets her narcissism, she lets her personal gain get in the way of what is best for everybody, including herself. Um, like for instance, we saw this with the Serena Sharp interview or Serena Sharp cross-examination in her trial, right? She's trying to claim on interviews that she didn't say she was translated. She didn't say that those were the things that she said, right? Because nobody was there. Um, but then she's trying to prove to Serena Sharp that translated beings are actually in the Bible. Again, like, what is the motive there? Like, what is the motive? You know, like, for instance, she's tried to prove that Nancy Joe and Charles were having an affair, which they weren't. Charles was in the means of getting, or in the process of getting a divorce, and was going on a few dates with her, or went on one date with her. But then, on the other side of it, she's having an affair with Chad. She knows it's wrong because she denied it. And then, yeah, it's just like there's the many faces of Lori. I feel like, when they say somebody's two-faced, for Lori, it's like, unlimited amount of faces. I think that she doesn't know what she wants. And I go between, is this a calculated move or is this a move to just try to like shake, you know, like, oh, I watched the behavior panel recently. It's a great YouTube channel, by the way. They recently did a thing on Lori Vallow. But they did one on Robert Tejas, and Robert Tejas is one of those other narcissists who committed a horrible crime. And they talked about how he has this like underlying anger, right? And they, believe it was Greg. He said he's like if you shook a box of bees, like, you know, you could just see all of those, like, like I feel like Lori's like a box of bees, and if you shake it long enough, something's gonna happen. You're not gonna see the Lori in trial where she's using the keep sweet, pray and obey voice. She's gonna be the Keith Morrison Lori, the one who's yelling and trying to gaslight, and you can like tell that she's manipulative. I feel like that's the way that Lori is. And so when it comes to all of these trial motions, I feel like she's just trying to stir the pot to get something to happen because she's bored. Um, and of course she's bored because, like, she chose to represent herself in a trial. She says it's to have a speedy trial, but, obviously, um, if she's not on trial, or if she represents herself, she has more time to talk, and be in front of the crowd and be in the spotlight and be on camera. And even though she didn't want a camera, she went on an interview. Like, it's just one of those things. This is one of the other contradictions of Lori. Um, so what is her motive here? And we'll go through the motions in a bit. I found them on Justin Lum's account. I am a patron member of Hidden True Crime, and they do have the trial documents on there. And I was like, I'm not like it does say to like keep them to yourself, so I didn't know if I could like read them and maybe not share them. But then I saw that it was on Justin Lum, so I was like, okay, I'll just share those. But um, but I'm trying to think about what is her motive here, because the whole reason why she claims she wanted to represent herself was because she wanted a speedy trial. She wanted to get out of Maricopa County. She wanted to get out of the jail so that she could go back to Idaho. Because deep down inside, I think she knows that she's spending the rest of her life in prison, at least until the second coming, obviously. But so it's like, you know, she wanted Brandon's trial immediately after this one. She wanted it, I believe, on the 11th, which is like in a little bit more than a week. But they ended up moving it to the end of May, because they were like, listen, we have to get, like, we were expecting this trial to go on longer, but we need this trial, like, dot our I's and cross our T's. We have to call witnesses. We need more time. So they ended up having her trial at the end of May, which is still pretty fast for a trial. If she had proper attorneys, they would probably request a continuance, and the prosecution as well. But she wants her speedy trial, and that's been the whole thing. It's like she wants to get out. I think she knows that she was gonna get convicted in, or maybe not, I don't know. And that's the thing. It's like the many faces of Lori. Does she think she was gonna be convicted, or does she think that she's gonna be exonerated? Because I feel like sometimes she puts on a front of like, I believe I'm gonna be exonerated. I believe I didn't do this, blah, blah, blah. But I think that she does know at least a little bit that she did do this stuff. Um, and I'm sure that there's a lot of like psychological stuff going on. Sorry, I had something in my eye. Oh my god. Um, so with her motive here, I really think it goes back to the motions she was trying to file before her trial. And this was also mentioned in this motion too. She was trying to get her trial dismissed in the beginning. One of the main things was she said that she wasn't provided with the phone data from Charles's phone in enough time for her, um, I believe forensic digital analyst. I don't know if that's the correct word. Lonnie Dworkin, who was also the analyst for the Jodi Arias trial. I don't know if he was on which side he was on, but she wants him to look at Charles's phone because they found some sort of discrepancy in the data and whatever. And so that was the whole thing. Was like, I you know, I haven't been able to get this stuff because I mean, like, I don't have enough time. Like, I'm in prison, I'm in jail for like 23 hours a day, and like I only have an hour, which is not true, by the way. Like, um she has unlimited access um to her attorneys. I don't know if she has a roommate. Maybe that's kind of why they might not want to, you know, obviously, like, I can't imagine, like, we did see on Justin Lum's news or YouTube channel the tiny cell that she was in. And I assume, if you're I would feel bad for Lori Vallow Daybell's roommate in general, or cellmate, but to have her like talking 24/7 about her case at her little tiny desk, and there's only one desk per person, or one desk per room. So I can only imagine, like, her like having these like constant chats with her like attorneys, and then the roommate just being like, "Oh my god, like, just shut up." So I don't honestly, I don't I think with the gravity of this case, and especially since she has prior convictions, um, that led to her being found guilty to, unaliving children, um, maybe she's not with other people. But then again, like, she talks about how she talks to other people in jail and, like, she only has an hour, and I don't know how she can, like, make these connections with people for an hour, but, like, maybe she's lying, I don't know. Um, but anyway, she does have sorry, ADHD. She does have, um, access to her attorneys, 20 unlimited access. So, she did have time to file these things. Yeah, of course, she doesn't have the resources like you would if you were free, but if you wanted to be free, sorry, okay. I don't know why it says the connection is low here, but the connection is fine on my computer. I know that there's been some issues. I think it's the weather or, um, they said something about a tower being vandalized, so we've been, like, out of Wi-Fi all day, um, but it came back. Ooh, okay, and the thing went away. Alright, I didn't continue, so I'm gonna continue with what I was saying, so, um and I think I might have forgotten it now that I've been talking about the Wi-Fi. Um, gosh, I lost my train of thought. I think it was something along the lines of Lori Vallow, Daybell having access to her attorneys 24/7. Oh, yeah, yeah. Basically, she was saying, like, "I'm in this incarcerate" she said incarcerated prison jail, high what is it? High, like, security incarcerated prison jail. Um, and, you know, that's why she can't get this stuff done. That's why she can't contact Lonnie Dworkin. Also, Lonnie Dworkin was on, vacation. He has other things to do, blah, blah, blah. But the issue is she could have fixed this all by just, like, you know, asking for a continuance. But again, she wants her speedy trial. So, she has her speedy trial. She got the verdict in 1 day. This was an expedited trial. Like, the voir dire, everything was just expedited. She got that, and now she wants a new trial, and I can only assume that if I don't think that the new trial is gonna be granted, but if it was, they would probably try their hardest to cover all their bases, and I don't think that they would allow all of this, like, all of these mishaps that were allowed in the other trial. Like, I will be honest, I do think that the judge was a little bit like, overeager to, like, to speed up the jury selection process. It just didn't seem right to me that they chose a jury in, like, a few hours, especially in this, like, higher profile case. And listen, I get that, like, not everybody knows about this case. I've been telling people about it, and most people, at least in my area, um, don't know about this case. And I'm not from Arizona, so I don't know. Um, but, um, but just the fact that there was 2 jurors dismissed within the first few days, and then we have the Carl situation, and Carl talked about how he didn't wanna be there, and he's like, "I was gonna say I don't wanna be there, but then I knew that I had to have like, uphold my, you know, um, my duty," right? Um, and then this the whole issue that, like, they had issues with him before. Sorry, he was on his phone, he was texting, um and then of course he says that thing, which I think is a slip of the tongue. Not like a slip of the tongue, but I do think that maybe his train of thought was kind of going all over the place. A lot of these, like, I don't know why they let the jurors go out through the front door. I think they really could have like taken them through the back door and then like said, if you want to interview, you can go to the front. But because a lot of all these jurors learned about the previous convictions after the verdict, and then they had to leave, and then they had the mainstream media hounding them, and then on top of that, they had YouTubers, um, and I think one of the jurors said that the YouTubers were more respectful. They were more caring. They cared about them versus the mainstream media. And I could see that. But so I think that maybe, like all of the jurors, their brains are going like a mile a minute. They just learned that they just convicted a three-time convicted murderer. And they found out why Tylee wasn't there. They found out why JJ wasn't there. Why Chad wasn't there. So it's like they're trying to process all this stuff. So and the way, at least my thing, it was kind of unclear what he said on Hidden True Crime, but I do think that he said that he only knew about the verdicts like after, or he only knew about her prior convictions after the verdict. So maybe, I have no idea. If anything comes out of it, I maybe think that Judge Brefsky will probably call in Carl to ask about what he meant by that. But I think that there's been so many other trials where they've had more juror misconduct and more juror dismissals, and they haven't retried. And I'm sure this case is really expensive, and I don't think the court wants to retry it. And, I think that part of the expedited process was just the fact that she's already convicted in others. So this is kind of a low stakes trial. In terms of like, for like, it's like, it's not going to be like, oh, we're going to try to see if she'll go free. Like, she's never going to go free anyway. This was mainly like for justice for Charles and his family. So, maybe that's why it was expedited, but I do think that they could have, maybe could have avoided the situation if they would have had a longer voir dire process, maybe considered more people. Because I was listening to gosh, I'm bad with names. Not Tosh. There was a female juror. She just had a recent interview, like I think today, with Hidden True Crime. And it was funny. She said she was bad with the names. I'm bad with the names too. Like, I don't know names. I know like things. I have a good memory as far as like actual stuff, names and like terms and vocabulary. Not that good. But she was one with the long hair. She was like formerly LDS. And it's unclear to me whether or not when they said that there was two women jurors or female jurors, because people kind of like, juggle those terms like they're like they mean the same thing. And Tosh seems to have like, I don't know how they identify, so I'm going to use they them pronouns. I know that a lot of the reporters referred to Tosh with she her pronouns, but I didn't see any of them ask. And I think that Megan Connor said that like one of them might be use they them pronouns. I'm not sure. So I don't know if they clarified that and that Tosh goes by she her. So I'm just going to use they them until I've figured out. But I don't know if Tosh was included in the two women jurors, because I don't remember if it was Megan who said there's two female jurors and one of them might be a they them. I didn't know if that meant like like one other than them might be they them, or one of the female jurors might be they them. So so yeah, so anyway, she might have been the other female juror, or is I don't know. Anyway, so her and Tosh, listen, there's only been 3 jurors that have been interviewed. Okay. And um and I don't like, obviously, like Tom Evans, he's he was on the former Idaho jury. He has written 2 books about this. He's on his 3rd book. He's gone to all the trials after the Lori Vallow trial. He's really invested in this case. He cares. And there's been other jurors who care about this case. I'm not saying that male jurors are not but if there were certain that other juror sorry. um this is not a stereotype. This is not like, oh, like, but or at least more people with like her who, like, I felt like she really got it. Like, I felt like she was really analytical about the case. She, you know, yeah, she had some emotion, but she also, like Lori says, like, all women are emotional, but she had emotion, she had empathy, but then she used her analytics to be like, okay, well, I can't convict her on emotion alone. I have to find evidence. And she found it. Carl, I think, was very heavily onto well, this is not conspiracy. I feel like there's certain things in the trial, and he people just think differently when it comes to um, this kind of stuff. But it almost seemed like there was times where he was just like, I don't remember that this was brought up. And it was like, no, like that evidence was brought up. And that, I guess that's the whole reason why they do have evidence, in the case. And when he did see the evidence, he did realize, okay, no, she's definitely guilty. So maybe I'm just kind of using this. Maybe I'm just kind of, I think you just saw my thought process go in my head, and like, maybe I'll just not say what I was going to say. Um, but I did feel like, was her name Sharon? I don't want to misname her. I think her name was Sharon, but maybe not. Um, I feel like she was just more thoughtful. Um, and she said, like, I will, like, I might not be able to make it to the next trial, but I want to make it to the verdict. And, I want to get in touch with certain people and like talk about this case. And she watched the entire Chad Daybell trial and Lori Vallow trial on YouTube. So I just wish I'm hoping that there was more people on that um jury like her. I mean, we already have her verdict, so I guess that there's not, it doesn't matter that much. But I do think we could have avoided this whole situation with certain jurors if I'm saying we as if I like am a part of this in any way, if they paid attention a little bit more and maybe we're a little bit more meticulous in the voir dire process. But I don't know their motivation. Anyway, I might have more thoughts, but let's go ahead and go through the motions. You can find these on Justin Lum's Twitter or X or whatever. I'm going to say Twitter because the only reason I have a Twitter account is because I follow Justin Lum. That's it. Like I'm like when I'm trying to find like motions and evidence, I was like, oh man, it's on his Twitter account. Like I don't know the password to my Twitter account, and I just made a new one because I'm like, I don't know. I haven't been on it in probably 10 years. So I was like, you know what? I have to get on. I think I only follow Justin Lum, probably Nate Eaton. But yeah, anyway, so let's go ahead and go through these. You can also find all of the court documents on Hidden True Crime, their Patreon. It's like only a few dollars. So I don't know. I kind of go up and down between, I feel like FOIA request is kind of it's not really a FOIA. FOIA stands for Freedom of Information Act. I feel like anything that's behind a paywall, and not saying hidden true crime shouldn't put theirs behind a paywall because they did probably pay a lot of money for these documents. I'm talking about the court in general. I don't know why they're so expensive. And I get that there's a lot of work that goes into getting these documents out, but I feel like it's kind of like oh yeah, you have the freedom to you have the freedom to read these documents, but you have to pay $1,000 or so. And most people are not going to commit to, paying for these documents. I don't know. It's just one of those things. So, but I'm glad when people like Justin Lum, are able to share them. Even Hidden True Crime. I think that they said that they spent a lot of time curating the documents and putting them all together, and so I'm grateful for that. And most of the time when I follow cases, I go to their channel first, so it's nice to have that. So when I say I don't like that they're behind a paywall, it's mainly the court, mainly the legal system. It's not Hidden True Crime in general. Anyway, let's go ahead and go through these documents. So, this is actually the second page. Okay, this is the first page. As we can see, it's typed out. This is her proper. It's their little office, their little cell. So, in the Superior Court of the State of Arizona, in and for the County of Maricopa, State of Arizona plaintiff Lori Daybell, her motion for new trial. So, we're not gonna read the whole thing, but let's just go through the beginning part. Honorable Judge Brefsky. Lori Daybell requests that also it's kind of weird that she's the one writing it, but she's using her name and what is that? Third person? Lori Daybell requests that the court grant her a new trial. The motion is filed pursuant to the protections provided by Rule 24.1 of the Arizona Rules of Criminal Procedure, the Fifth Amendment Due Process Clause of the United States Constitution, and Article 2 and 424 of Arizona State Constitution. I don't know what that means. Okay. The motion is accompanied by following memorandum of points and authorities. Okay, so let's go through the facts. Let's go through what the evidence will show. Juror misconduct. Okay, this is the part that we were talking about. On April 28, 2005, it came to the attention of the Defendant's Advisory Council and later the court that Juror 15, okay, so he was 15, made a statement indicating that he had knowledge of this defendant's prior conviction. And then she put the clip for the Fox News thing. And they have a quote for it. He also indicated that, let's go to the next one. Oop. He was leaning towards a not guilty vote up until yesterday and through deliberations. And then she showed the minute mark. This prior conviction involved the homicide of her children in Idaho in 2023. This defendant did not testify in this trial, and this conviction was not presented by the state as Rule 404B, other act evidence. Thus, Juror 15 should not have learned about this information. By the way, 404B is something that's been brought up in a few other trials. I think the Robert Tellis trial, they said a 404B, and I was like, oh my God, I actually know. I'm learning these rules now. I don't know if they're the same in every state, but Robert Tellis trial was in Nevada and this one's in Arizona. So I'm maybe some of these things are the same. But I'm man, I'm learning court lingo now. But because this case was a high-profile matter, once the jury was released from its admonition, jurors were free to speak with media. During an interview, Juror 15 was asked about his reaction upon learning about his defendant's prior convictions. He stated the following: I feel sorry for her. Driving home yesterday, I was like, God, she's spending the next 3 lives in prison in a cell. And like I said, you can check out this video. I don't feel like showing it. But that's what he said. And that's, I think, the most damning evidence of a retrial. I don't know. She has some other things that we'll talk about, but I honestly don't think that that's means to have another trial. But I do think that maybe that's something that they need to clarify, and they might probably have a private hearing. I don't know if they'll have a public hearing about it. But I think he just kind of said he didn't know about he doesn't remember what he said, but he didn't know about it beforehand. So I don't know. And also too, I think people have to realize so if he was driving home yesterday and he knew about her prior convictions and he came back, he was one of the 2 jurors that was still on the fence of whether or not this was a guilty verdict. So he already, even if he knew, let's say he knew about this, okay? I don't think he did, because he just didn't really seem in touch with, like, the whole case. He didn't he still thought she was innocent as far as this conviction goes. The only reason he felt like she was guilty was because they read through the text messages again. So they saw the evidence. As Lori says, the evidence will show. The evidence showed once he looked through it, he realized, okay, there is evidence of conspiracy. She did say he was Ned before he was Ned before we got rid of him or something like that. So even let's say hypothetically he did know about this, it doesn't really have anything to do with her conviction. If he already knew, that didn't affect his opinion of the trial at all. So I think that might just be like, I don't I don't know by what means they can have a new retrial, but I don't see it going to retrial. But like I said, this trial surprised me a lot, so maybe there will be, but I don't know. I don't know. I I hope not. Like, I think most of the victims are like, please no. Like they know that, like, obviously I do think that um Kay will, if Trina K is like convicted or having to do another trial for this one, um she will probably double down. And I don't know, and I'm sure that they'll be allowed to probably bring more evidence. I don't know why she said that she wanted to bring in Tylee's evidence, and then she wanted them to know that Tylee passed away because she wanted to have this narrative that Tylee, you know, unalived JJ and then herself. And I think like Lori thinks that would, if she had that narrative, everybody will believe her, and she, you know, will be exonerated from all the things or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I'm like, if she lets Tylee's interview in, I think it's just gonna show like how upset Tylee was. And if they have more jurors like Sharon, I think her name is Sharon, they will see something doesn't seem right. Because my thing is, knowing about the case and watching these interviews, you can kind of see like something's not right about Tylee's testimony. Also, if you brought in Alex's testimony, all 3 of their testimonies are different. They have a little bit of the same thing, but most of them are different. And also too, I don't think that like her prior convictions were like the means for anybody thinking that she was guilty. So I don't know. Anyway, what's the next one? The preclusion of Tylee Ryan and Alex Cox's statements, kind of like what we said. An impermissible expert testimony by Detective Daniel Coons. Prior to the trial, the court precluded his defendant from presenting to the jury any of Tylee Ryan or Alex Cox's statements. Okay, at least the reason she was precluded from doing this was because they said you cannot be found guilty of killing somebody and then using their statements in your defense. So let's say she's allowed to bring in statements, they're not considered hearsay, even though the person's not deceased. That would mean that she could probably only bring in Alex's statement. And then if she's allowed to bring in Alex's statement, the prosecution would probably be allowed to bring in Charles's statement. And I feel like Charles's statement is more damning than all of these put together because it just shows more of he knew what was going on. He suspected something was going on. So, maybe I feel like, and one of the jurors did say, like, I saw this footage, why didn't they bring it in? And then they said, it probably was hearsay. So anyway, I do think that if she's allowed to bring in any of the deceased people's statements, it will be Alex's and then Charles's statement from the prosecution. I don't think she'll be allowed to bring in Tylee's statement. She keeps saying it's not for the fact of the matter or something like that, but it's for like the feeling at the time or something like that. Like basically like showing emotion is not the person testifying. But they did show Thalia in the footage. They just didn't show what she said because, again, it would be considered hearsay. So they did see her. So maybe they'll be allowed to show like her how she acted. But then again, that's not really evidence at all because, like, you know, she could be crying for other reasons. So yeah, all three people were in the shooting of Charles Vallow, and thus, as they show a listener pursuant to Arizona rules of evidence. The statement filed a motion in limine throwing a blanket hearsay objection over the entire statements. Like I said, if they did a blanket hearsay, that means that Charles's statements were not allowed either. If they allow them, then they're going to have to allow Charles's, which is not going to work in your favor. The court indicated in a pretrial ruling that it would, at least to Alex Cox's statement, take it on a statement-by-statement basis. During this trial, the defendant was precluded from even discussing that Alex conducted a walkthrough, much less his statements with Chandler police detectives during that walkthrough. Also, if they're doing it by statement basis, she didn't even allow that to happen because she didn't put on a defense. The time that they would be able to talk about allowing these things is when she was putting, like, let's say, tomorrow I'm putting on my defense, but I need to know now if I'm allowed to put these statements in as evidence. But she didn't do that. So she kind of shot herself in the foot there. She talks about the walkthrough. Again, I don't think the walkthrough would work in her favor because I think that I can only assume that it would kind of what's it called, like, contradict certain things that Alex said, or, you know, Lori or whatever. Okay, so let's continue. So it's something about Detective Coombs. Then in the state's case in chief, and elicited expert testimony from the scene agents, Detective Daniel Coons. This defendant objected to his testimony as an expert witness based on lack of foundation and her not having time to rebut his professional opinion. Like I said, Lori, if you wanted more time, you could have just asked for more time. Again, this defendant was precluded from discussing Alex Cox, the shooter's walkthrough that was conducted with several Chandler police detectives, including Detective Coons. This walkthrough was precluded as an inadmissible hearsay. However, it formed the basis for Detective Coons' questioning with the medical examiner and how he investigated the case, as Alex Cox indicated he shot the victim in self-defense. And maybe I will say I don't know much. I don't remember much of Detective Coons' testimony, even though he testified for a while. So I don't know if he based any of his opinions on that walkthrough. Okay, let's continue. C. On April 14, 2025, during this trial, Ms. Trina K produced a hard drive containing a gray key information for Charles Vallow's cell phone. This content of the hard drive was our exculpatory evidence. Defense has been requesting this evidence so that she could provide it to her independent expert for review. This discovery disclosure occurred in the middle of trial. Again, Lori, they provided the evidence. If you wanted more time, you could have got more time. I don't think any of these things are means for a retrial. But again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. I'm not a judge, so I don't know. D. Prosecutorial misconduct. Now, this one is interesting. No. This is not the Karina Sharp one. This one was the one. Okay, this might be something that I'm like a little bit confused about. Okay, so on April 8th, the state elicited irrelevant prejudicial and improper character evidence when she asked Chandler Fire Department Captain Keller if he overheard any conversation with this defendant. Ms. Trina K asked Captain Keller on direct examination, "Did you overhear this defendant talking with police?" He responded in the affirmative, stating that he overheard somebody stating not getting invited to the pool party because of the commotion at the house or something. This statement caught this defendant off guard, as Captain Keller indicated during his interview with Chandler Police just after this incident occurred that he only saw the male outside the curb and did not mention even seeing this defendant. She could have objected to this if he said this. This is like, you can't say like, oh, like I I just forgot to object to it or didn't have time or, like, this threw me off guard. Like, you could have objected to this if he said this. Um, and then they continue. So during closing arguments while addressing the justification defenses, Miss Trina K told the jury that this defendant was not entitled to any of these defense instructions. Miss Trina K also gave false statements by saying Alex had no reason to be at this defendant's home and this defendant told Alex to bring a gun. Okay. So yeah, in closing statements, her job is to say, like, here's why you should, like, prosecute. She has a burden of proof. So she's using all of these motions and saying how it fits in with the charges, or she's using all these charges and seeing how it fits in with the evidence. And then when you have a rebuttal, instead of talking about, what we learned during the trial, maybe you could have said, here's how it doesn't fit in. That's what a defense attorney would do. But you're not a defense attorney, so whatever. Miss Trina K knew from previous testimony, interviews, and pretrial defense interviews that Summer had begged Alex to go over to the defendant's home because of Summer's concern for this defendant's safety. They showed that in trial. Finally, Miss Trina K commented several times on this defendant's demeanor during this incident, drive to the police station on the body camera, and told the jury, "Did you not see her cry in that interview? Yeah, because she was nonchalant." Yet, knowing there were emotions of this defendant's... Ooh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yet, knowing there was portions of this defendant's interview that had been cut from the full interview admitted by the state, where she sat in the room, it did show motion and can be seen grabbing a Kleenex. I might want to check this out. Should we check it out? I want to see the Kleenex part. Hold on. I know I said we weren't going to watch any. Also, I have this annoying thing where my Chrome automatically goes to Yahoo as my main search engine, and I can't change it. I've tried several times. Somebody said it might be a virus. I don't know. I'm hoping it's not. But if it is, it's the most annoying virus ever, and you won. If you So every time I search something, it's always like Yahoo, and it never shows up. Like, whatever results, like, never show up, like, at the first result. It's always like the second or third. All right. So Lori Vallows police interview. Okay. Full video. Okay, I do want to see. Is there a part where she's grabbing a Kleenex? Oh, I think she just put it's 2:27:55. Oh, minute 10:08:33. Okay. Let me go to that one and then I'll put it on the screen. 10. It's just really funny that it's that she, this whole hour interview, she's grabbing a Kleenex. Hey, you know what? Let's watch this together. I'm sorry, I don't I don't wanna watch this whole thing and then, okay. I will present my screen. Not like the whole video, by the way. When I said let's watch the whole video together, I just meant let's while I'm going through this, let's watch it. Because I don't she said 10:55 or 10:08:33. But again, I think that the exhibit probably has a longer time, so I don't think it's an actual timestamp. Let's see. Okay. I don't think that was the part. I wonder if it was like when she was sitting down, and I watched this part in the behavior panel, and it was really funny is that she told everybody. Also, am I sharing? Let me make sure that I'm actually sharing the. Oh, I'm not sharing the footage. I'm sorry. I sometimes I'm like, I need to. I'm still getting the hang of this. Okay. So I just watched this on my own without anybody. Um, so what's really funny, and I didn't find it at that timestamp particularly, but I don't think they used the obviously the YouTube video. They probably had like a longer, more extended version of what was shown. Or maybe like, the timestamps are different. But um as we can kind of see here, and I don't know why this keeps popping up. She I watched so on the behavior panel, they just did a recent video on her most recent interview. And they did do a previous like evaluation of this video too. By the way, the behavior panel is a group of 4 behavior analysts. A lot of them, they have like a lot of expertise in body language. And they all have like different expertise in like different things. And one thing, I think it was Chase, he said okay, so at this interview with um Brianna Whitney, she's acting, when she hates this word, nonchalant. And she's talking about her kids, and what happened to her kids, what happened to Tylee, supposedly what Tylee did to JJ and all this stuff. And he said, if there's, and I'm not quoting him, but I'm like, he said something along the lines of, if there is this much going on, you're just convicted of 3 murders. Now you're convicted of a 4th. All of this stuff happened in your life, and you are acting this calm. The calmer people act, this is when you need to be more afraid. And I don't think he said the word afraid. I don't know if he said like the word run or something. But this is a situation where somebody, and I get people can be in shock. I don't really show like I don't have my emotions on my sleeve, and I could be seen as nonchalant in certain situations. But she's like almost falling asleep. Like I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, how can you say that you were like sad or whatever? Okay. Like Tylee was upset. Okay. Maybe is this where she's like trying to be sad? I think also that what they also said was like, they're like, look at the teddy bear. She's literally the same. Like the teddy bear is moving more than she is. Like, is this where she has the? Okay, I can't find the Kleenex part. Maybe I should have done a little bit more research, but I'm not going to. I don't see a Kleenex. Like, I don't see a Kleenex anywhere. Maybe this is another interview. Yeah, no, I cannot see the Kleenex. Okay, maybe it was somewhere else. Maybe they ended the video early here. We're just gonna stop sharing for now. So she said that she could be seen showing, like, wielding a Kleenex somewhere, which doesn't mean that you're upset. Like, could just mean you have boogers in your nose, Lori. But yeah, she said that that's evidence that I was upset about it. Even though she said that, like, I don't act crazy because I have to be calm and blah, blah, blah. Like, again, contradictory. I don't know what she's trying to get at here. So, yeah, let's go. I think we're almost done with the motion. So, we're going to go back to it, and I will put it on screen, and I'll say that out loud. I feel like I'm back at online teaching again, where I have to be like, I have to share my screen so that I remember that I'm sharing my screen. All right. So yeah, you can see her grabbing Kleenex, which means, of course, and I like how she put Kleenex as in like, the brand. It's funny when I lived in Kuwait, I used to live in Kuwait. I don't say that to be like boastful or anything. But I used to live abroad for a while, and there's a lot of like words in Arabic that like they use for, like, the predominant language is Arabic, but there's certain terms they use that they like just put in an Arabic accent, um, that are still like the name brand. For instance, like any tissue is called a Kleenex. And so they'll say like, "Oh, do you want a Kleenex?" And like they know that word because of the brand. And that's kind of like how we say um like chapstick or Velcro or something like that. So it's just I don't know why I remember that. But um she put the word Kleenex, like, "Okay, Lori, was this actually a Kleenex? I think you need to go back to the examination room and see if that was actually a Kleenex. Maybe it was off brand. And that could be a discrepancy in your motion. Motion denied." No, I'm just kidding. Okay. If I'm using Lori logic, motion denied. Court's lack of impartiality. Okay, so this is E. I think the motion's like 13 pages long. I don't think that Justin has the whole thing. So we're just gonna stop here. Oh yeah. She said something about how her testimony was oh, okay. No. Sorry, we have more of it. So I'm just gonna go through. I'm just going to summarize that part. But she said that her testimony or her witnesses, Nate Eaton especially, were not allowed in the trial. They were precluded. But again, we had a reason why they were precluded because she didn't provide any evidence that Nate Eaton needed to be subpoenaed to be a witness. They said that they were going to do this on a need case by case basis per witness, but she didn't put up a defense. So there's no reason why this needs to be brought up at all. Like, she never said, "Hey, I need Nate Eaton up here to impeach a witness." You can't just say like, "Oh, I was like distracted." That's why people don't represent themselves. This is why they have a legal team who can pay attention to these things, bring these things up. So I think she's just trying to, accrue all these things. I think the reason why she's having a new trial, because again, I don't think her original intention was to have another trial. I think it's because of what Carl said. And I'm not saying that Carl's the reason for all of this. I just, I think with Lori, you give her anything. You give her like, an inch, she's going to take a mile. She's looking for any reason to get this case dismissed and get this trial dismissed. Here's an interesting one. During cross-examination of a civilian witness, Serena Sharp, in relation to testimony regarding religious beliefs in court, the court commented during the prosecution's objection to relevancy, stating, "I guess to the extent that you are comparing yourself to these biblical figures, I will allow it." Now, this is interesting because now she's going after Judge Borewski himself. Part of the state's case was to establish that the defendant had stepped outside of the Mormon religion by claiming she was a translated being, specifically in text messages, saying she would be like Nephi, and that these messages were nothing more than part of the conspiracy to kill Charles Fallow. This defendant attempted to establish that being translated was a regular part of the Mormon religion and thus a relevant line of questioning. Here's where I don't understand this. Serena Sharp said it was a little weird that Lori said that she was translated, because this is not a part of our normal LDS religion. And I get that Serena was part of the group that believed that they were translated. And I think that Serena understood and believed it at a certain point. But she said it was not part of the normal Mormon religion. Lori decides to say that, well, no, like, look at the scriptures. They had this little Bible, like mathlete Bible off thing, where she's like, "Well, do you remember in this scripture where they said this?" And there was actually, and she was basically trying to prove that there were these translated beings, right? And so there was an objection by Trina K. And then the court actually sided with Lori, saying, "I guess to the extent that you were comparing yourself to these biblical figures, I will allow it," which was a funny statement for him. But I think he was just saying the reasoning why he was going to allow it, which maybe he shouldn't have done that. But again, it's not a means for mistrial. If anything, allowing it made further proved the fact that she believed she was a translated being. Because she's trying to prove that translated beings exist, which doesn't rule in her favor. Because if she believes she's a translated being and that supposedly somebody would shoot her, with a gun and she wouldn't die, how does that work in her favor? That's just like I feel like significant part of the trial. Like that nobody like I don't think a single juror said like, "Oh, we thought it was weird that she said she was a translated being." Like none of them, even the one who was again, Sharon, I think, who used to be LDS, who grew up LDS, she didn't say, "Oh, that was a weird part." She was talking about the Nephi stuff, which was not a part of this objection. I don't know. Okay. Uh, I think this is more just like why she's entitled to a new trial, basically saying she's using like the case law, trying to use case law to say like, this is why I need a new trial. Let's go to the next one. Let's see if there's any other. Yeah, no, it's mainly just case law. Yeah, I think she's just kind of like re-sharing what she originally motioned to. So yeah, that's where we're at now. Um, Lori wants a new trial, even though she wants to also go back to Idaho. Doesn't make any sense at all. Um, I think she's just bored. I think who said it? I I want to say it was Colby. He's Colby Ryan, Lori Vallow's son, said that you know narcissists need this fuel. And listen, we don't know if Lori's an. I think Lori isn't like I think that she was diagnosed with narcissistic traits in her Idaho trial. So like we could say that she is a narcissist, and she does have the clear signs that she is. Um, but I'm not saying this like to diagnose her. I think she was already diagnosed. So I'm calling her a narcissist. If it walks like a narcissist, talks like a narcissist, probably a narcissist. Um, but she needs certain fuel. She needs certain means to be able to gaslight people, manipulate people. But because she's in prison, because she, probably only talks to the guards and um all these people that are above her, she doesn't have people to manipulate. So if she has a new trial, she's able to feed herself again, fuel the fire again to further be able to manipulate people. Um, which is weird because I'm like, if you want a retrial, wouldn't you think that like she's taking all this time to type up these motions when she knew that in Charles's trial she could have had like she needed more time to like put her thoughts together, and you would think that she'd be just working towards the Brandon Boudreaux trial, but what I think she's doing is trying to get this case dismissed so that Brandon Boudreaux's trial is also dismissed. I don't think that she actually wants a new trial. I think that she wants the case dismissed altogether because she did try to do that before the verdict was read. She said that she didn't think that there was any evidence. And I kind of go between she believes that and she doesn't believe that. It's clear the evidence did show that she conspired, but I think in her mind, like she said, she thinks that it went a different way. And so yeah, I don't know. It's just strange. I don't understand it. But like most things that Lori does, I don't understand it. um, and it's just one of those things. It's what's crazy is that so after the trial ended, I started this YouTube channel talking about the trial, and I mainly watch YouTube videos nowadays. Like in and I've been going through the Robert Tellis trial. Um, I tried to watch the Karen Reed retrial, but I don't know, the audio was really bad and I don't know, it's one of those things where I was like, do I want to open another can of worms and go through that right now? It just seemed like I didn't want another Richard Allen situation because there's so many people who think that Karen Reed's not guilty, and then there's people. I don't know. I didn't want a trial that was like starkly like two sides. Like that just I don't know. Maybe I'm having like Richard Allen PTSD. Um so I was like, okay, I watched like a few days and I was like, I'm just gonna not do that. So then I'm just like kind of jumping around and then this happened. So I was like, oh, I do have something to talk about. um and then of course I'm going through Chad Daybell's books. We're currently reading his first book, An Errand for Emma. I did get oh sorry. I did get a few of his other books in the mail, one of which is his first biography, I think. It's One Foot in the Grave. This one is about his life as a cemetery sexton. I think this one will be interesting. Um yeah, I again, if you're you, all of these books were bought on eBay. I did not give a single penny to Chad Daybell. I don't even think he makes money off books anymore. But if anybody was worried that I'm like buying from his company or something, I'm not. um, but oh, and then I did get The Celestial City and Martial Law. I don't know. But yeah, so we've been going through Chad's first book. And I was talking to my parents today because my parents and I like keep up with this case and we, you know, like we talk about like family stuff and we were talking about, you know, signs of it, like, you know, adults will commit certain crimes towards children. And I brought up how when like Chad's third book in this Aaron for Emma series, there's a part where like he like one of the main characters actually commits like violence against a child. And it's very eerie because it's almost like verbatim what happened to JJ, or what supposedly happened to JJ. We will never know what actually happened. But as far as like that moment when Chad left the room after like reprimanding JJ and he had a scratch on his face, it's almost the same thing that happened. And it's these books were written like in the early 2000s. I want to say the 90s because some of them were pre 9/11. So anyway, it's just crazy how these books kind of alluded to his crimes. I've been like I've kind of been going through where like I'll watch a video and then you know how the YouTube algorithm suggests another video and will just automatically play it. So I keep watching like these like very early hidden true crime episodes. And you know, I'll be like fired up about things like talking about Chad or whatever, and I'm like, man, like I again, I'm not trying to talk about Chad to like keep him, you know, relevant or whatever, but I do think that because of all of that, this whole year has been Lori, we've forgotten. Like, yes, Lori is, I would say, more quote unquote fun to evaluate because she's out there, right? She's talking, she's doing interviews, she's easier to read versus Chad. We only have his past interviews, like, you know, when he was a cemetery sexton, we have his like the body cam footage, but we don't have much of him, you know, like he's not doing an interview with Dateline or anything like that. So I think that it's been good for me to like read these books and be like, okay, this is why we need to talk about Chad, because this guy was allowed to run free for like 50 years and now like it's just all come to a head, as Lori would say. So yeah, that's just been interesting to kind of go through. I also think that there's some not trials, there's some cases that I want to go over that nobody has really talked about. I currently have a true crime club that I run with my local library, and we brought up a trial that's like local, and so now I'm kind of going through it, and I'm like, I don't know why people are not talking about this. It's very indicative of the Suzanne Simpson case, which is a San Antonio trial or San Antonio case currently happening. Not a trial, sorry, case. But yeah, that's kind of been like the update as far as true crime goes. I said I would talk about the popes. I think Conclave has started, or no, they've installed the chimney. I don't know if Conclave has started. I haven't really been keeping up with that. But I did want to talk about like the new, almost said contestants, the contenders. Because again, I think that while, you know, even if you're not religious or Catholic, of course the Daybell trial has been a lot about religion. And I think that, you know, the Catholic Church has a lot of relevance as far as current politics and all that stuff. So I kind of wanted to talk about like where could the Catholic Church be going? Because I grew up, if you didn't know, I grew up Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore, but I do have a degree in religious studies. And I did take a Popes of Rome class, or I took like several biblical classes and religious classes in Rome. I went to the Vatican several times. I actually went to St. Peter's Basilica, like where the popes are buried. Pope Francis is not buried there. But I did go to St. Peter's Basilica, like in the, what is it called? Necro something. It's not where the popes are. It's like under that, where St. Peter's buried. That was interesting. Anyway, I'm rambling now. But I did have a lot of interest in that stuff when I was there. I would say like the Vatican was like my favorite place to walk because we lived like super close to there. And then, when Pope Francis was elected, I was like really like, at the time I was practicing Catholic and was really invested in it. Now I'm more invested in the social aspects of it. I'm not really, I do think that, like most major churches, they should be responsible for crimes that, they've committed. And, you know, I don't believe that. Anyway, that's part of another tangent that I'll go on. But but yeah. Can you tell that I have not filled my ADHD prescription yet? Oh, also, I've been super random. I've been really into like adult coloring. I didn't think I'd be an adult coloring person, but I recently bought these like little mini coloring books from A Brighter Year. They're cool. You can like, it's basically a little picture you can color in like a few minutes. But they have like these calendars, and it's like almost a color by number. So every day you color a calendar. So I'm catching up. So like obviously we're in May. So I did the January one, and this one is of St. Basil's Basilica Cathedral. St. Basil. I don't know if it's Basilica or Cathedral in Russia, in Moscow, Russia. I've actually been here, and I don't say okay. I feel like Tahani sometimes, if you know, from The Good Place. But like I don't know. My brain is like, oh, I just need to relate to these things. I've been here before. I went to Russia back in the World Cup times. I really liked it, but don't think I'll be able to go there again. But anyway, there's that one. I used like, and I think it came out like it's like super shiny. I don't know if I as because I the llama kind of dark and you can't see his features, but okay. Sorry, I was waiting for the camera to go back on. As far as other things, in the future, we will probably be finished with an errand for Emma soon. That's been, I say a wild ride as in like just the most boring ride, but also like weird. Um, so we'll finish that, and then of course, any other stuff that comes up in the Lori Daybell case, we'll talk about that. And then of course the Delphi case. I know I keep saying I'm going to cover the not the Delphi case, the Delphi footage. I still want to do that. I just, again, most of the time I do this stuff like late at night when I should be sleeping. So I don't know. I just need to find a time to do it. But yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and go before my Wi-Fi goes out again. Hopefully y'all are staying dry if you're in South Texas. I don't know. There's been a few storm watches and tornado watches and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully y'all are doing okay. And yeah, if you are a teacher or you have kids in school, let's try to get through the rest of the year until the summer. I don't have kids, but I used to be a teacher and I know how stressful the last few weeks of school were. Um, now I work on the other side of it where like we do summer stuff and I'm like, oh, I'm dreading summer just because it's so busy. Um, but yeah, let's get through this. Hopefully nothing else major happens before the Brandon Boudreaux trial. We're also going to be covering. I think we should look through the Melanie footage and listen to both Melanies, by the way. I want to listen to the secret Melanie Fib call, where she admits to all this stuff, knowing all this stuff, and then of course the secret Ian Pulowski recordings, where Melanie talked with Lori and Chad when they were on the run. I think those are interesting. I also think that there's a lot more stuff that we should be paying attention to with Melanie, because I think that if Lori's convicted in Brandon Boudreaux's, also too in Brandon Boudreaux's trial, I feel like there's no reason why they wouldn't bring in Melanie. I don't know. Like I said, Trina K is coming for everybody. She brought up Summer in the closing statements. There's no reason why she's not going to bring Melanie. Who knows? Maybe she is. Maybe she won't. Maybe they don't want to touch that. But I feel like if Lori's convicted, I feel like Melanie's next. Hopefully. But yeah. So we're gonna watch that too. We're gonna talk about it. But yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. It's like 1:20 in the morning. And I hope y'all have a great day. All right, see y'all later.